The Viper GTS is the kind of machine that made posters feel alive. And today, we finally get the chance to show you why this 90s icon still sends a shock through anyone who sees it. Welcome back to the Next Gear channel. Before we dive into this fierce red serpent, make sure you hit that like button so we can keep bringing legends like this to the channel. Trust me, you are not going to want to miss what this car still does to your senses. Seeing the GTS in person feels like stepping through a time portal. It is not nostalgia, it is impact. It hits you before you even move a step closer. There are cars from the 90s that look dated. And then there is this. Why does it still feel so dangerous? So alive? That is the mystery we are about to unravel together. Design. Look at the stance. Low, wide, and unmistakably angry. If someone says Dodge Viper, this is the shape that appears in their mind. It is timeless in a way modern cars struggle to replicate. Why does it age so well? Maybe because it was never polite. It was designed to scare supercars, not impress neighbors. Front end, the headlights keep the original Viper attitude simple and purposeful. No LEDs, no fancy tricks, just old school intensity. Below them sit round fog lamps covered in period-correct caps, something you almost never see today. The grille cuts through the air like a shovel, feeding a monster of an engine that lives underneath. And right at the center, the famous badge known as Sneaky Pete, finished in body color. Fun fact, many forget, the emblem was sketched in a single attempt by its designer, and the leadership team approved it instantly. Hood and arrow. The hood is practically a runway dominated by a NACA duct. Originally invented for aerospace, it pulls a surprising amount of cool air into the system with minimal drag, and the fender vents. They actually work. This was an era before fake grills and pretend vents. Hot air escapes through both sides, although one side plays a more unusual role, helping the air conditioning system breathe better. Each detail on this hood was put there with function in mind, wheels and brakes. Back then, wheels were not about size wars. The GTS runs 17-inch polished wheels, wrapped in tires that are almost impossible to find in modern sizing. Hidden behind them is a 4-piston brake setup, simple but effective for its time, and the wheel hubs. They come straight from the Dodge Ram truck. That is right, Supercar borrowed hardware from a pickup to handle its massive V10 torque. 6 lug nuts. 6. Because the Viper bends rules rather than follows them. Side profile. Here is one of the most interesting bits. The GTS actually weighs less than the RT10 despite adding a roof and roll-up windows. Chrysler swapped heavy steel suspension pieces for aluminum, shaving pounds where it mattered. And speaking of windows, this was the first Viper to have real door glass and exterior handles. All of it controlled electrically, a bare bones, but still a leap forward from the brutal minimalism of the first generation, a rear end. The rear fenders flare out wildly, pushing massive 335 wide tires into the pavement. A built-in ducktail spoiler rises from the bodywork without looking cartoonish. Then, you notice something clever. The third brake light carries the Viper logo inside it, glowing every time the driver slows down. Detail that feels almost rebellious today. And unlike the RT10, the exhaust exits through the center of the rear bumper, not the side. Not because of sound complaints, but due to heat management and emission sensor placement. The result? Better cooling, better reliability, and a more aggressive soundtrack. Fuel system. On the passenger side sits a race-inspired aluminum fuel cap. It looks ripped straight from a Le Mans pit lane. You pop it open and immediately feel how serious the GTS was about reminding you of its purpose. Engine, here it is. It's the part that made the world take notice. 8-liter, naturally aspirated V10. No turbo, no supercharger. Just 10 cylinders breathing through red-painted intake runners. Dual throttle bodies. Truly raw engineering. Output was rated at 450 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. Numbers that shook the supercar world in the 90s. A 6-speed manual is the only transmission you could get. 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. A quarter mile in the high 11s. Top speed near 190 miles per hour. All in a car that gave you no electronic safety net. No traction control, no stability assist. No ABS. This was a machine that demanded respect every second you held the wheel. Interior, open. The door and everything feels direct, simple, and intimidating. Analog gauges only. No screens. No touch controls. Just needles sweeping across white faces. The air conditioning vents include one aimed right at your lower body, a solution only the 90s would dare create. Bolstered leather seats grip tightly, and the bolsters inflate with a small hand pump like the shoes from that era. Small touches like that remind you that performance was once achieved through clever engineering rather than menus and modes. Driving experience. Once you start rolling, the entire cabin becomes a symphony of mechanical noise. The steering is hydraulic, which means feedback is constant. The pedals sit slightly offset, which keeps you alert. The engine never stops reminding you it is alive. And then comes the roar when you go full throttle. A roar that feels like a wildfire rushing through metal. This car is nearly 3 decades old, but it delivers a kind of excitement that no modern computer-filtered performance car can imitate. Cars today may be quicker on paper, but they cannot match the character that pours out of every bolt of this machine. Open the rear hatch, and you actually get usable space, enough for travel bags or tools. 11 cubic feet. The GTS may behave like a wild animal, but it still brings practicality in its own old-school way. The 1997 Dodge Viper GTS is not just another classic sports car. It is a symbol of an era when engineers built machines with instinct instead of algorithms. A time when danger and excitement were part of the price of admission. So tell me in the comments, is the Viper GTS still the king of 90s dream cars? And while you are here, hit that like button and subscribe to the Next Gear channel so we can bring more legends back to life on screen.